Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Anxiety and depression are growing problems in today's world. Modern medicine and therapy haven't stopped the increase in these disabling conditions. Is there a way we can help ourselves out of anxiety and depression? Is this an anxiety and depression epidemic? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the X-Zone TV channel, xztv.ca. With us this hour to explore conquering anxiety and depression is Faust Ruggiero. Faust is a published research author, clinical trainer, and therapist who's developed the Process Way of Life counseling program. He's the author of 6 books, his latest, Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. His website, FaustRuggiero.com. Faust, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back. Thanks so much for inviting me.
It's always wonderful having you on. I love your topic, and it's so important right now. So how did you first become interested in anxiety and depression? It seems like a depressing subject, you know.
Well, as a psychologist, that's what we do. We see a lot of people, and almost everyone comes in with some measure of at least anxiety, some depression for some people. So, it's one of those things that's very treatable. And if people are willing to work, we always get them through it.
Well, it seems like, in many ways, anxiety and depression, they seem very, very different. But how are they related?
Well, both of them are based in the body. That's one of the misnomers we see so much. We call them mental health conditions. They're not. They will affect mental health, but they start in the body, both depression and anxiety. Um, Neurotransmitters stimulating the brain, overstimulating them sometimes, not enough other times. So really, I always have my people work on their physical part of this first. I get all that in order, proper diet and exercise and sleep and all those types of things. Purge what doesn't work. Get healthy first. And usually when I do that, I've probably taken care of 50 or 60% of the problem right there.
That's interesting. I had not heard that it starts in the body first. I always thought it was circumstances and then the body responds to that, but it actually starts in the body.
It always does. If you ask yourself the question, well, why does person A respond with either anxiety or depression, get so worked up on something, and someone else, person B, goes through the same situation and they don't react the same way? It's an interaction with the environment and your body, but some bodies are just predisposed to react to anxiety and to depression more often than the others. They're the ones that are going to be the what if people and oh my God people, and or the people that ruminate over what happened in the past and can't get over it. Those types of things. But you'll find that with all these situations, if we calm the body down, those mental aspects go down also. It's just the way it works. People think that I think about that, my body reacts. Yeah, but the body also goes down then. Why does the body not, get to the point where it can relax again? Well, it's a physical thing. We need to take care of that, teach the body how to react to stressful situations, and then help the person move through those.
I'm a real nature buff, and I live out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm always observing animals. And one of the things that I see is I can have a herd of deer up here, and they're grazing on the grass around my property. And here comes coyote, okay? And they flap their tail and they run. But if you follow them, you go over the next hill, they're all chill and they're grazing again. We don't do that. Why?
Because let's go back first to discuss that. All of us have that fight or flight syndrome. We all do that. So that's a survival part of us that we need to be that we need to engage. But it's supposed to be one of those things that lasts for a few minutes and then stops. When you get into that physical anxiety I'm talking about, The fight or flight doesn't shut down. That's where the physical problem is. For some people, it will. Some people will, go through something strenuous, and I'm one of those. My God, I'm running to this and I'm running to that, and this happened, that happened. Then I can sit down and do an interview like this, and you'll say, I don't even know this guy had a problem, because we teach ourselves the skills. We get it. We have our bodies to the point that they're not overreacting. That fight or flight is very damaging. It raises cortisol levels, which, as we know, they wreak havoc with the body. So it's always physical. Even if your mind is triggering your body, it's the same thing. Well, let's get your body to the point that it doesn't become triggered by it doesn't hold on to the energy. And that's why we train the body first. That doesn't mean by all means, that we don't go into the mind. I'm a psychologist. That's what I do. But I'm preparing the palette, if you will. That's what I'm doing. If I'm going to paint the picture, I want everything cleaned out. I don't want to have junk all over my screen. I'm preparing that first. Then I'm going into the mental things.
So, how much of this resides in childhood? I mean, we're brought up in circumstances. We see how our parents react. We have the genetics that our parents do, or we're in a traumatic circumstance as children where we don't dare relax. How much of that then is carried forward in the body?
Well, it is. Yeah, yeah. It's always that nature nurses nurture thing. Of course, we're the product of two parents typically, and then so we have their biology. And when I see people, I'll go back and say, well, let's go through the family history. Who had depression, and who had anxiety, and who had these things, whose mind didn't turn off? And we always find someone back there. So the biology is there. The other thing, though, that we do is we learn how to live like our parents lived. I'll say to people, look, all right. You have anxiety. Let's go through your morning. First of all, did you sleep well? Well, no, I was up till, midnight, and I was on my cell phone, and I got 5 hours of sleep. I said, okay, so you started wrong to begin with. Your cells did not have enough time to rejuvenate and to become healthy. Now, what'd you do? Did you have breakfast? I have a cup of coffee, and then I had a little one later, and I had a bun, or I had okay. So your nutrition is already off. Did you eat lunch? Probably not. Now you ate a bigger supper and you munched all night. Okay, so we know your eating isn't where it needs to be. Your body doesn't have what it needs to do that. Are you exercising? I walk. Okay, every day? No, a couple times a week. So what you told me is sleep, diet, and exercise is where it needs to be. How about if we change that around first? That's something your parents taught you. Let's change that around. When I do that with them, two things happen. One, the body gets healthy, but the second thing is the mind engages and starts thinking about health, not being unhealthy. We train our minds to think about unhealthy things and to live unhealthy. Then we go do it.
So, when we think of something unhealthy or traumatic, does our body know it's not happening, or does it respond in the same way?
The body and the brain are one. When you think about it, the brain lives in the body. It controls bodily things, and the body supports the brain. So yeah, we know it. But what happens is there's this neat little thing that I teach in every book, and I've taught for years, called habit formation, normalization, essentially. The body and the mind working together. The mind says, well, I know that's not good for me, but I know I like it. So now I normalize it, and little by little, it becomes what I do. Even though it's not good for me, the mind will help me get what I want, because that's its job. It's to make me happy. So quick fixes and all those things that I shouldn't do become the norm. But I always say the quick fixes are like living on credit cards. At the end of the month you pay, and if you're going to keep putting all those things that make you happy quickly, they will raise your anxiety level. They'll even raise your depression level. They'll raise your anger and your frustration, and they won't help you change. That's the other part of it. You don't get better because you're always getting better for the moment, feeling better for the moment.
It sounds like a vicious cycle,
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So so how large of a problem are anxiety and depression in the world today, and why is it different today than 50 years ago?
A lot of reasons. I just touched on one. Think back when we were kids. How much fast food and chemical stuff and all that junk did we eat? Dinner was prepared typically. Um, uh, Home life, more together. The world did. We thought it moved fast, or I should say, our parents thought world is moving so fast. It was a snail's pace then compared to now. The demands on us to follow the crowd. Um, we never shut down. We never shut off. We go to work or school or whatever it is, and we have our cell phones out. We are connected all the time, reacting to everything we see, and we are being led by media, which really has taken us prisoner. You put all those things together, we don't have a chance to catch our breath,
And it just seems like it is accelerating,
and it is
from week to
accelerating.
week. It's just there's always some new AI or something that you got to better study this one, because I don't want to be behind, and you know check on my emails and look at my social media, and pretty soon hours have gone by, and you've sat there stressing about things and not getting anything done really.
And that's the key. And when we were younger, our parents weren't plugged into our life. They didn't even accept half of it. So that they kept on pulling us back to the slow part, to the think, to the learn about this. Parents now are products of this new information stage. So it's a norm for them to be on iPads and computers and cell phones. So family time is sacrificed. And what the kids are doing that doesn't allow them to unplug and slow down is exactly what the parents are doing. I was in a chiropractor's office 2 weeks ago, and a mom and a daughter were in there, and the mom came out and sat down, and for 10, 12 minutes they were together before someone picked them up. During that time, they sat right next to each other and did not exchange one word. They both stayed on cell phones. And I
Mhm.
thought to myself, my goodness, not even a word. And people sometimes are quiet in waiting rooms, but I mean, mom and daughter, not a sound. They were both locked into cell phones. That's what's happening at home. Kids go to school and whatever's happening there, bullying or all the stuff they have to so intensely follow doesn't shut off. When you get home, we were able to shut those things off. They don't shut them off. So this level of living, this fast-paced, accelerated life, never quits.
And I see that, in my grandchildren. It's like their mother thinks she's doing the right thing to drive them to this football practice and to that, and it's like the whole family is just go, 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 trying to meet the needs of all the children. But are those really needs? Or are they part of the problem?
They are part of the problem. The sports, even though sports are wonderful for a child, you learn so many good things there. They never stop. We would maybe play baseball, and it was in the summertime, and then September would come, and that was done. Maybe the next group went into football, but you maybe 6 months of the year you weren't in an organized sport. Now you
Yeah,
are
you
in
are.
that sport at intense levels with all different kinds of training, because you've got to get to the top level
Yeah,
and you're in it all the
all the time.
time.
Well,
Even band,
it's
even
time
band
for us
people.
it's time for us to take a station break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. Whatever you do, don't panic. With us this hour discussing the devastating impact of depression and anxiety is Faust Ruggiero. He's the author of Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. Faust, what is the difference, between anxiety and panic attacks?
Well, anxiety is typically a normal condition the way we live our life. It's there typically every day. Most people who get to the point of a panic attack are anxious people to begin with, and then the anxiety will begin to raise. Conditions of their lives may change, and now they're experiencing what can feel like a heart attack, can feel like a intense chest pain. Um, Confusion, sweats. They can't turn it off. You want to jump right out of your own skin, and that people think that it elevates. You'll feel the anxiety and it go to a panic attack. Panic attack can come in You can be sitting and watching TV. People wake up in the middle of the night to a panic attack. It's an over firing of nervous energy in your body that you feel like you can't shut it off. For some people, they can go out and walk around and kind of catch their breath, and maybe it begins to slow down. Other people have to take a medicine in order to keep that in check. But really, what the answer to your question is, the panic attack is anxiety that remains unchecked for a long period of time and eventually gets to the point that it's like a volcano and it just explodes.
It's I didn't have an appreciation for panic attacks until I actually had one. But mine was related. I was fine. I wasn't upset. I hadn't been in anxiety, but it was after COVID. It was a long COVID effect. Have you seen that? Because everybody, I was in a class, okay, and everybody that was in that class that I taught, somebody came with it, and we all broke down with it, and a great number of them then had lasting panic attacks afterwards. Have you seen any of that?
I have. uh, After the pandemic, people think, okay, it was the virus, or maybe you didn't get the virus, but it was being locked down. What really happened is the world changed. That new normal, I like to call it. We got to the point where now we over accelerated again. Um, but the other thing we did is we got impersonal, and we had no problem taking advantage of each other, be it gouging people for supplies, in the way we don't connect anymore. We were moving in that direction, and gradually getting to the point that we were disconnecting. But the pandemic said, okay, let's skip all these steps and we'll get right to it, and we're going to disconnect. And that traumatized many, many people. It put families that were not getting together. You couldn't leave. We experienced sickness, and we experienced financial problems and death, and came out of that at a different place, particularly in this country, at a different place where before we were a little bit more trusting of the way our world was going to evolve. All of a sudden, we realized that nothing is guaranteed, and we're in a whole different place.
Boy, we're sure living that right now, aren't we?
Mhm.
So, what is the cause of the increasing anxiety and depression? We've talked about it some, but we're seeing it across the board. And so it's the fast pace. There's that, but and I can see the anxiety causing that. But what's this? Where's this overwhelming depression coming from that people are suffering from?
Interesting thing happened, particularly it was we were starting to see it when the pandemic hit. But what we are now seeing is that anxiety and depression are hitting the population at much earlier ages now. Uh, that's so what we're doing, as opposed to an adult that says, "Gee, I never had anxiety, but now I'm in my 20s or my 30s, and I'm really starting to get this," and or something happened in my 20s. We're getting kids come in the office, and a mother might call. I just had one last week and said, "I'd like to bring my daughter in. She's experiencing anxiety." I said, "How old?" She said, "7." I said, "7?" I said, "Well, when you say anxiety, what do you mean?" She's just paralyzed. She stays in her room. She doesn't want to come out. All she wants to do is lay in bed or go on her little iPad. And and that's not an isolated case, not by any means. So if we're going to experience this younger, we really have to gear this to treat younger people. We haven't started to do that efficiently yet. Um,
Do you feel
and
like
so
the diet that these young kids are being fed, and I don't just mean the physical diet, I mean the diet of media, is playing into that?
Oh, absolutely. They're far more aware of things that kids should never be aware of. They're talking politics. They're talking about shootings, and they've experienced shootings in their schools for the last 20 years. It's not a safe place. It's not a safe world, and we've allowed so many things. That typically we would have said, wait a minute, let's look at this. For example, you've seen the furries. If you know what those are, this is where kids firmly believe that they're animals. And parents were saying it's okay. They'll grow out of it. But no, people don't normally think that they're a cat. Some schools were talking about putting litter boxes in place. So we're actually taking mental health conditions and we're giving them some play as if they were norms. We began to stretch norms into things that, and we started with things that were very, very, very good. Where we were accepting different sexualities and cultures, but we got to the point where we were accepting mental health conditions as they were normal. And our kids were 12 and they were talking about their sexuality. They're not ready for that. And we were allowing that to continue rather than letting them talk about it and not just giving in and saying, yes, you're fine. We accept that in you. Let's give you time to develop. Let's give you time to start understanding who you are rather than have you lock into a particular way of thinking. We're just not treating them very delicately. We're just not, we think we're understanding them, but not, giving them whatever they want is not understanding them. We need to let them talk through things and help guide them. And that guidance factor has become minimized. We're allowing things to go because we think we're doing the right thing by letting everyone live their own life.
Children have parents and need guidance. I mean, and that's our role really up until they're, of an age where they can make their own decisions in a
Exactly.
reasonable way. And yet we've totally lost sight of that. I mean, I've seen situations in families where the kids are the ones running the show and they aren't doing well because of it. They feel insecure and kind of at a loss.
When we were kids, you're 12, you're 13, you're coming into your sexuality. You have no idea what it is. And you just have to grow with it. Now they're 12 and say, well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a combination of this and that. And we say, well, that's good, wonderful. No, it's not. That when you're 18, you may say, yes, that's exactly what I am. And we say, okay, fine. You're working through this through your adolescence, but to assign an identity or have them assign an identity when they're 12 and 13 years old, it's too fast.
And there's a lot
This
of
is
pressure to do so though, isn't there?
Sure. Oh my
Yeah.
God, yes.
Mhm.
And you're not hearing someone say that I have a problem with all these various identities. My God, live. But get to the point where you understand what you're living. We're allowing them to try too much on for size at an early age, at a time when we're going too fast, at a time when parenting is not guiding the way it used to. There are all these combinations. We're producing kids that are just going to have problems, and we're seeing it. It's not like I'm predicting something down the road. It's here.
It's here. It's here. So, I think this is a question many of the audience that are parents would like to ask is how can you tell when depression and anxiety is becoming a problem for your child versus just a phase they're going through?
Well, see, this is where parents get caught. They'll look and say, well, how do I know if they're anxious or depressed? And I say, if you think you're not going to interact with your child, and then somehow you're going to read the symptoms down the road, you'll always be way behind. The answer to the question is parent closely every day. Talk to your children. Know what's going on in their lives. Ask them questions. Don't just say, how was school today? How do you feel today? That's not parenting. That's anything but parenting. Sit them down and let them know their family time. If you are taking them to their sporting practice or whatever, and it's a half-hour drive, disconnect the buds and talk. You have captive audience there. I'll take you there, but we're going to talk on the way. You need to get back in touch and know your children. You need to know them and you need to interact with them every single day. Ask questions every day. Interact, get to know all the things they're doing and their friends. Bring up things like, gee, what did you think about, the flood in Texas that just happened? Tell me about what that means to you. Ooh, let them emote for you. Let them get those emotions out. That's how you know whether things are going off track. But most parents are trying to do is say, well, I think they might be depressed because he's been in his room for a couple days, or he's angry with me. A lot of parents bring them in when the child no longer is someone they can deal with. The parents, the child's giving it back to them and yelling back at them, and they're angry. They say, "Well, I can't deal with this anymore, So you need
You
counseling.
fix it. You fix
Yeah.
it.
So
Right.
I,
Right.
I'm going to bring you to somewhere because I can't deal with it. But that's not the reason to bring your child because you can't deal with it. You bring the child because they're having some issues, and you need to know what those issues are.
Parents are so busy. Do you think that's a huge portion of it? It's like everything slides by because they're so busy they don't pay attention?
That's the thing I don't buy. Yeah, you're busy, but doggone it, you had 2 hours to be on your phone that night. You're posting on Facebook. You're doing all those kinds of things. You know, parents. Two parents brought their child in and said, "We just don't have time." And I said, "I look and I'm there on my Facebook list, and I look at them, and 3 nights a week they're out." And you see them at the diner and they're raising their glasses. And I said, well, wait a minute, time out. How do you have time to go out? And where are your kids when you went out? And then they just look at me. So by all means, we have time, but we became selfish parents who must have their self-care and must have their time to do all the various things they do. Real parenting is sacrificing yourself. You sacrifice for your children. You don't say, I'm going to go out and you're at home alone. You don't say, fine, go up in your room. When we built our house, and we're back in 25 years ago, so computers weren't part of this. And I didn't have telephones in their rooms. I didn't have televisions in their rooms. There was one television in the living room. If you wanted to watch it, we did it as a family. You didn't isolate in your room because there was nothing to isolate for.
Yeah,
I, I
and
did.
then that's
I did.
isolating seems to be the go-to at this
It
point.
does. I did
Yeah.
not buy video games for them. We had things in the backyard. Basketball. We went out and we did things together. We hiked and we did all those things. So they didn't have when they got to be teenagers. I said, you can get a video game, but you're allowed to play that after schoolwork is done, after you've been outside. Get your friends over if you want to. That's fine. You're not playing online with friends. That's not happening. That's
Right.
not friendship.
You have to have
I
interaction.
want I want
Yeah.
contact. I want you to have interaction. And our basement here, we have basements in this part of the country. Ours is finished, so it wasn't common to have 15, 20 kids in my basement,
Mhm.
and all the kids were there. And I told all the parents, bring them over. I'm here. And the parents, sometimes their parents would come over. And
Well,
that's how
it's
we did
it's
it.
it's time for us to take another station break. Faust and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Who said that? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing the rise in anxiety and depression is Faust Ruggiero. His website, faustruggiero.com. Faust, let's talk a little bit about tapes, or as you put them, internal language. We all have certain things that go through our heads all the time, and I would expect we're marginally aware of them.
Mhm.
What's going on there, and what can we learn from it?
Well, you start with the notion that thought, the way we think with language. We talk to ourselves. We talk about things. When I say, I used to, so humorous. I'd say to people, "Do you talk to yourself?" And they'd say, "Never, not me." And I said, "No, that's. I'm not saying do you have conversations and talk back, but you'd be surprised how many people do, and that's how we solve problems. That's how we work through situations that concern us. That's how we make plans. But for some of us, that internal dialogue gets angry, and we use it to sometimes get back at other people. Sometimes we have conversations in our own minds with other people who are not present. Uh,
Is that I should have said?
that's part of it, or it might be where you actually have the conversation like you and I are having right now, and you go through the back and forth, and you just tell that person off in your own mind, um, because so much energy is stuck inside you, so to speak. Something has happened and you felt victimized, you felt abused or bullied. It wasn't fair, and you're
So,
angry.
so how does
So
it get stuck?
it gets stuck because we never put closure on it. We never get to the point that we say, all right, let me talk to the other person. If you and I are having an issue, I would say, well, let's talk about this. I have concerns about this. And so we don't confront well, so we spin it in our minds. Well, what happens is the person's never there. We're not good confronters, so we keep on spinning it. And before you know it, we are actually angry. I've seen panic attacks develop because people are doing this in their minds. They just don't shut off.
Don't you also build a false reality because there's no input of the other person's true stance?
And that's the other key. How many times do you do this in your mind and you're so angry and you're having that conversation? Then for some reason, maybe the other person starts the conversation, but then you talk it out and then you walk away saying, well, that wasn't that bad. I should have done that before.
Or I didn't even understand what was going on,
Right. So
you know?
and how can you? Because you didn't. You're right. You did not ask that person for their information. So everything you're processing is based upon what you are thinking, not the whole piece, not yours and mine, not that joint part of the conversation. So it's information that's one sided. It's emotional. It's angry often, and it may serve to get back at the other person or to plan to get back to them or at least to make you feel as though you are no longer being bullied.
So, but also the isolation we were talking about in earlier segments, isn't that playing into it? Because once
Sure.
again, you're just sitting there stewing in your own juices without having any interaction.
Yeah, and see, the thing about this is that when we're thinking in our mind, it's not like we sit back and say, I think I'll think about this now. It just starts. That's the way the mind works. The mind runs on autopilot, so to speak. It just starts the thought. You can be in your car, and and maybe you're thinking about this person at work, or if you're in school, your schoolmate, and things didn't go well. And before you know it, you're in that thought. Well, you didn't say, I'm going to get in my car and think about that and spin that in my head. It just happens. The other problem is once it starts, there doesn't seem to be a brake pedal, no pause button. We just keep on going, and we can find ourselves in that conversation for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, going over the thing, over and over again with no solution. And that's the problem. So you want to talk about anxiety.
So there's another kind of tapes I'd like to talk about. You can shed some light on for us. And that's the internal tapes we have about ourselves. So where do those come from and how damaging are they?
Well, they can be wonderful depending on our language. If I'm a person that says, well, gee, I don't do a lot of that stuff well, but I'm going to formulate a plan, maybe get some help, and I'm going to get better at that. I'm a good person, but I just don't do that well. That's one kind of tape. Or the other one says, I never do anything right. No matter what happens, I'm, look in the dictionary, Murphy's Law, there's my picture, all that kind of stuff. When we keep spinning that over in our head, two things happen. One, we have a horrible image of ourselves, but even more damaging, we think the rest of the world thinks that of us.
We kind of create it then.
We did. We created I call it a persona.
Mm.
We created that internal persona of who we are, and that is going to be what we believe and what we believe others think about us. And then there's your self-fulfilling prophecy. We'll go be that person.
So how much of that comes from what we were told about ourselves growing up? You're
Much of it.
never going to amount to anything, right?
That or just negative environment that we lived in. We heard negativity expressed all the time. We internalized that. Didn't even have to be about us. Could be about the world. Could be about the neighborhood, the finances, anything. It's just constant negativity. So rather than prepare ourselves, or at least try to be good, and feel good, we figured we're going to come down. And people say all the time, I'm not going to set myself up for something good. I'm ready for whatever is going to happen.
You set yourself up for something good, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment, all those beliefs. And it seems like, can't we just two people be living in the same world under the same circumstances and depending on your mindset, one is thriving and the other one's in the doldrums?
You can, again, you want to make sure the anxiety and depression aren't part of it. But, I always tell people the worst enemy you can have, if you will, in a negative situation is yourself, because you are fighting the same person you need to take you out of this. The advice to people is get it out of your head. If you're spinning something, talk to someone you trust, someone who's not going to tell you what to do, just wants to hear what you have to say. Spin it for them and ask them to ask you questions about it. Watch how things change. Because, if I say, well, she did this to me, she's always like this, the other person might say, well, let's look at that. Give me how these things happen. Let's get the whole thing and how the whole thing evolved. And then I have to go back and I have to present that and ask questions. Things tend to clear up. We need to get it out of our head. And if you don't have someone close, go see a counselor. Start
So,
dealing with those things.
so how, there are people that, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind's made up. It's like they're invested in the reality that they've spun in their head. Does guilt drive that? Like if they can make a villain and they don't have to feel guilty about what drives that?
Oh, it
It
could be a
seems
lot of things.
counterproductive.
Depends on the person. It could be guilt for some people. For some people, they're very used to being abused. And, when a person internalizes abuse, they often abuse themselves, or at least put themselves in situations where, abuse can continue. So, what we think about ourselves is what we're going to put out there. And then we live that thing. We also it can be a product of anger. We're just angry people, and it doesn't matter what happens. We look at it with anger. We respond with anger. And in this world today, just a continuation of what we were talking before, if you look at it, everyone's using anger before they even examine the facts. I post this, and then the next person says, you're right, and that rotten so and so, and the next person does something. Then there's something sarcastic posted, and everyone believes they're bonding over anger and dysfunction. And now we spin that conversation in our head, believing that it's empowering, believing that this government, that person, whatever it is, did this. I'll say all these things, and then I'll bring it out, and I feel powerful. They're not abusing me. No, you're abusing yourself. You don't need
Gotcha.
that.
So, going back to anxiety and depression, what are the available treatments? What is the normal treatment, and is there something wrong with it? Because obviously we're getting worse here.
Well, we need to get there as early as we can. If you're feeling bad, this. Just ask yourself the question, is this what's happening? And is it happening a lot in my life? And then the second question is, can I stop this by myself? Not, and that doesn't mean, do you want to be the person that can stop it? You're the guy or the woman that says, no, I'll do this on my own. If it's continuing, you're not doing it on your own. Make a call. Go talk to someone. At least get into a counselor's office and say, let me talk about this with you. Maybe I need help, maybe I don't, but at least I now know where the resource is. I may use it now, I may use it later, but I did something to come out of my own head.
At some point, you have to recognize the problem, though, don't you?
Well, sometimes you can understand the problem, you can define that. Sometimes you can't. What you do know is that you are uncomfortable, you're in conflict, you're angry, you're anxious or depressed, and it's not going away. It's sort of like, the faucet's dripping. You're not sure why, but it keeps on dripping. So you don't always have to have the answer as to why it's happening. And most time people don't. But you want to at least say, okay, I got to stop the drip. I got to stop that in my head. So let me go talk to someone who has an expertise in this. At the very least, a friend that I really trust who doesn't feed into the problem. Someone who's posting angry items on the internet is not the person to go to because you're doing it and you feel rotten.
So, is it pretty common though for people to campaign and look for agreement in their misery?
Oh, yeah, if you some people, again, we're back to quick fixes, and I don't want to do all the work that is involved. I don't want to admit that I have the problem. That's another thing. So yeah, it's a whole lot easier to say, yeah, don't you feel this way? Oh yeah, I do, and then the other person does, and then we all think it's normal. It's not. The very fact that you're doing that tells you it's not normal. If you're living a healthy life, then your relationships with other people are positive, they're loving, they're supportive. The language that comes out of your mouth is good, positive stuff. designed to help other people and make you feel good about yourself and them. Are you doing that? If you're not, that tells you, that's another one of those, those telltale signs.
So if we go back to diet, how much is the all the artificial stuff, chemicals and fast foods and over processed, how much is that affecting our brain chemistry
A
and
lot.
setting this up?
A lot. We're now getting to the point that some companies are removing food coloring because the connection to anxiety and depression is now becoming documented. Other countries don't allow this. Our FDA here allows a lot of different things they shouldn't allow. I just helped someone get through the hospital for a substance that you find in many of the quick marts, those kind of stuff, something called kratom, and it is a powder uh, from a tree or that grows in Asia, extremely addicting. Some research say that it's 10 times more powerful than morphine. But
Yikes.
our FDA hasn't touched it yet. Now that's one of those things. And kids go in because it's a quick pick me up, legal, and they can buy it at any age. Um, so
And they'll find it. They'll find it,
they
won't
will food additive.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's time for us to take another station break. Please stay with us as Faust and I continue to explore anxiety, depression, and possible solutions. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. So, how do we exercise the demon? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Faust Ruggiero. His website, faustruggiero.com. Faust, we've been talking and we've touched in on some of the possible solutions, but if you are a person or if you are a parent of a person that is really going downhill, maybe even suicidal, changing their diet may not be the best first step. What steps should you take when it's that bad?
when it's that bad, Willie, you're at a point where you pull all the stops out. Now you're getting them help. Yeah, and for many people, the first step is just getting them to their primary care physician. They may or may not be willing to get to a counselor, but sometimes you got to be a little bit forceful. You got to say, okay, you're saying some things that are concerning me. You're not getting out of bed. We're going to just go to the doctor and see that. And I always say, just tell them something physically could be wrong. Don't get into what's in your head because that's going to scare them, or push them even farther closer to the edge. Just say maybe something physical is going on. Let's go find out and get them
Because,
to the doctor.
because a lot of, particularly if you're dealing with pubescent teenagers, or well, now, like you say, 7 and 8 year olds, they don't know what's wrong. Oftentimes you say, "What's wrong?" They don't know. They just know, it's bad, right?
Well, and you're right. I mean, they haven't developed the communication skills to tell you this is it, this is how I'm feeling, or they may tell you just enough to give you those red flags. But I always, with our kids, we always erred on the side of caution. We didn't say, okay, fine, you don't want to, I won't. What I can The first order of business isn't even about the kids. Parents have to be willing to say, I am putting my foot down. We're going to the doctor. I don't want to have to go to the doctor. I don't want to spend my time and I've got to take you there and sit in the waiting room. Parents don't want to do these things. So be a parent that does, that says, okay, we're doing this. And then get them there and say, you're going to go once and we're going to see what the doctor says because what you're doing is concerning me. You're not happy. You're not involved in anything. You're disconnected. We're going to go find out, make sure there's something that's not, and you're right. Hormones come into play with kids that are just entering puberty, you know, but again, we want to find out that there's nothing wrong. The other thing is, without scaring parents, your kid is in their room and they're not coming out. Maybe there is something physical and maybe it's something serious, tumors and all those kinds of things. And I don't want to scare anyone, but if your child is off the baseline, we say their behavior is different than they typically are, go get them seen. Do that right away.
How? much more important is it now when we're seeing all this dysfunction on all fronts? How much more important is it now to take aggressive steps? And how can you do it without alienating the child or the adult?
Well, you're not going to alienate them because if you're there with, you're forceful but warm and loving. You're simply saying, look, something is wrong. Let's go find out what it is. I love you enough to do that. And that's what I would tell my kids. I don't want to. Yeah, you know what? You we're your parents. We love you. Something is amiss here. Let's go find out what it is. Okay. And if it's nothing, that's great. We'll go out for ice cream, whatever, but let's go and find this and find out what's going on.
So often I've heard the signs were all there and I missed them. And
Yeah.
now the child is gone. I
Mm.
mean, that we're hearing more and more and more of that. Are we in a massive state of denial that we miss the signs? What's going on?
We're going too fast. As simple as that. We will miss the signs. That's why I say in your home, slow your family down a bit. At the very least, once a day, have a 15-minute conversation. Get off your cell phone and have a 15-minute conversation with your kids. We're asking to do it with kids. Parents themselves aren't doing it. They don't have that. You've got to start at the top. You have to show your kids you're willing to talk together, and then talk to them. Slow it down enough so you can make the connections.
So this sounds like for a lot of people, this Faust, this is going to be a huge life change because, we've been living like this for a couple generations and like you said, normalized it. How difficult is this going to be to turn it around in time?
Well, what my advice to people with that is the same advice I always give. You take one step at a time. If you say, hey, every night we're going to spend this time together, we're going to talk a little bit. You're not going to change anything in a week or a month, but over time you're going to connect, and that's where the changes occur. Everything is incremental that works. The only time you're not going to go slow is, like as you say, this could be a crisis, and then we're gonna act on it. But I always said, we did not want to be the parents who looked back and said, God, the signs were all there and we didn't do it.
Mhm.
And I have probably half a dozen, no, a dozen people that I know, friends that have lost kids. And if it wasn't for suicide or drug abuse, it was, they were so disconnected. The kid was out late. There was the car accident, and all the signs were there that the child was going off base. So, know them and give them your time. That's the key. And this is nothing revolutionary that I'm saying here. We bring them into the world. Our responsibility is to spend time with them, not to have other people do it, not to drop them off somewhere, not to give them their cell phone, let them go up in their room, not to have them on video games, and we never connect. Let them do it. Those things are fine, provided you connect.
You have that connection time. So when we were talking about the disconnected state of society, basically, um, how much do you think that disconnected state is allowing for the increased volatility and school shootings and everything's getting very violent and dehumanizing out there? How much of it is because we're just so disconnected we don't recognize it?
You just said it. You said a mouthful. The word was dehumanizing. We don't empathize. We don't feel what other people are feeling anymore because we're not contacting them. You know, you don't feel what a person's feeling by uh, spending time on the internet or texting on your cell phone. You feel them. In fact, I do almost all my counseling in my office yet because it's just the way to do things. You see people, you touch them, you see their body language. If they need a hug when they leave, you give them a hug. Even in the ranks of counseling, we are now in an impersonal mode of counseling where you log on and the counselor's sitting on there and maybe the counselor's cell phone is right in front of them. Yours might be. And all this is going on for 45 or 50 minutes, and there's no physical contact. It's the way the world is working. So you're right. Dehumanizing, and I define that by not being able to understand and empathize and feel what another person feels. You
So
know,
then what we're doing is we're creating these individual pockets of reality based on no input. And isn't that alienating us from each other even further and causing polarization?
sure it is. One of one of the most fearing things that people will say is, "Oh my God, the machines are taking over." The machines aren't taking over. We're just plugging into them,
We're
so
handing
that
it
they,
over, right?
right, we're handing it over, and then in that, as we're doing that, we're losing that so vital, that so loving connection with other people. Well, then violence doesn't seem to be a problem because it doesn't feel like a human you're shooting or you're hurting. It's that thing, that entity out there that whatever they did caused you to become angry enough to act out.
And don't we go into a this is your department, not mine, but don't we go into a different part of our brain even when we've polarized so badly that we're in fight or flight and we're seeing an enemy around every corner?
Yeah, we want to keep things, so to speak, in the front cortex of our brain, where all reasoning ability is. All the primal stuff is in the back. We're pushing we're pushing our mode of action, our mode of operating back again, becoming more primal, and again, that along with fast paced and machinery and the way we eat and all those things, put it all together, it becomes the world we've been living
And one big modern mess, right?
in. Mm.
So, what are the myths about anxiety and depression that really need to be addressed before treatment begins?
The first myth is the one I addressed in the beginning of the show, which is, let's get to the body first. Let's get that body healthy. If we get the body healthy, then we know that we've moved. We at least address that. And that doesn't mean you can't go to the mental health things first. What's going on in your life? Your marriage is breaking up, the finances, a job, the kids, whatever it may be. We give that attention, but we make sure that while we're doing that, the body and everything we're doing with the body is healthy. We're purging what doesn't belong there. Again, if you have anxiety, 3 cups of coffee a day isn't helping you. It's
So,
common sense.
so when you go into this, there's a phenomenon, and I'm sure you're familiar with, known as a healing crisis. Okay, so when you start to change a person's diet drastically, sometimes that can cause things to get worse before they get better. How do you deal with that?
I do everything slowly. I never allow people to purge everything at one time. If we're going to say coffee and anxiety, I'm going to say, okay, how much coffee you drink? Let's say it's 3 cups. I say, do me a favor. For the next 3 or 4 days, make it 2.5. Then go to two, then 1.5, and let's see how you're feeling. You may actually get to the point that a cup of coffee a day, you don't have to get rid of it completely. You may get to the point that 1 cup a day is okay. You may not. We'll start there. We'll start looking at your diet. How much sugar are you consuming? How much of the fast foods and the trans fats and all those kinds of things that can cause allergies, all the food coloring that can cause allergies. Sometimes it's an allergy that's causing your problems.
Yeah,
Let's
for
go
sure.
find out. Let
Well, we're
so
just
we,
about out of time, Faust, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what's your mission?
For me, my mission is to, just what we said, to keep people connected, to keep people in a frame of mind where it's positive, where the way they live their life becomes empowering internally, not externally, and then they can turn that power and that internal love outward to the rest of the world.
That's a beautiful mission because I don't think there was ever a time when it was needed more. Do you?
I don't. You're right.
Yeah, it's this is a make or break time, and I
It
think
is.
that what you're bringing gives people some tools to make it instead of break it, right?
It does.
Yeah. Well, Faust, again, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you next time you write a new book.
Sounds great. It's been wonderful. God bless.
God bless you. Our guest this hour has been Faust Ruggiero. He's the author of 6 books. His latest, Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. a published research author, clinical trainer, and therapist. To find out more about Faust, his books, and all he has to offer, visit his website, faustruggiero.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But please be sure to join us right again here next time on X-Zone TV channel, xztv.ca, where this mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to an evolving world.